expected points, clean sheet odds, and who is the best captain. This video has got all of the information you need to know ahead of game week, double game week 32. All right, we're going to start off as we do with all of the buy and avoid videos. I'm going to go through the top players for expected points by position, and we're going to start off with the goalkeepers. So top goalkeeper for game week 32, and it's no real surprise to see the top two goalkeepers here being Nick Pope and Dean Henderson. You know, both of them have a double game week. I'd argue, could you say that? Potentially, that Newcastle maybe have the better defence than Crystal Palace, although to be fair, it's probably been quite close this season. But Man United and Crystal Palace, I'm just looking at their fixtures. Man United and Crystal Palace for Newcastle, Newcastle and Man City for Crystal Palace. I'd argue, you know, the fixtures for Pope probably slightly better than Dean Henderson. And I would argue that your Newcastle triple up involving Nick Pope is probably more pickable than a Palace triple up involving Dean Henderson. Just something to think about there in terms of players to bring in. Anyway, other than that, single game week goalkeepers, we've got Raya, Martinez, Sanchez, Sells, and Pickford. And a bit of a rogue opinion of mine here. Given the fixtures that both of these goalkeepers have got, I don't know, do you actually back their teams to keep a clean sheet in either of them? Is it absolutely desperately worth having, you know, a double game week goalkeeper here? That's probably the question I'd raise looking at this. Okay, so we've got the one game week view, but usually if you're making a transfer in FPL, you're probably doing so looking at, well, 5 game weeks time, right? And we've got some interesting dynamics here in terms of the transfers you make, because obviously we've got a double game week in 32 and 33. So that's going to prop up some goalkeepers in terms of points, push down some others. Well, actually, it's probably not going to do that, because even though some goalkeepers have, you know, a double game week, over the next 5 game weeks, the number of matches each of these goalkeepers play are relatively the same, apart from, of course, Crystal Palace, who have one extra fixture. They play 6 games over the next 5 game weeks. The top goalkeeper for the next 5 is Raya, followed by Edison, Nick Pope again, Henderson again, Sells, Allison, and Pickford. These are your top goalkeepers for the next 5. Let me know in the comments who you think is the best goalkeeper in the game right now. Okay, so on to defenders then, and it's no surprise to see the list of top defenders for game week 33, or 32, sorry, in isolation, being the defenders with a double game week, right? So we got Munoz, who I think right now is probably the best defender in FPL, right? You look at his fixtures, he's got 4 games in the next 2 weeks. He's a defender that can pretty much guarantee you returns through 3 different means. You know, we can get consistent, well, say consistent, he can get goals, assists, and clean sheets. There aren't many defenders right now that are kind of doing that. You got Cher, Burn, and Livramento, 3 Newcastle defenders after that. Mitchell of Palace, I think he's a decent option, but I just don't see why you'd spend 4.8 million on him and not go for Munoz. And then Kivior of Arsenal, despite only having a single game week, is up there. And you got Lacroix of Crystal Palace as well. I'm pretty sure that's how you pronounce it. In terms of the next 5 game weeks, we got Guardiola top. I think that's based on the fact that it's that game week 36. There's a potential double coming up for Man City in 36, depending on how far they get in the cup competitions. Kivior's in second, again with that Arsenal double game week, and the fact that, well, he's probably going to get some good minutes with Gabriel being injured. Munoz again, who, like I said, I think for at least the next 2 weeks, he's probably the best defender in the game. Saliba, you know, just consistently going to start for Arsenal, I think. Yes, Kivior's up there, but I think I'd probably go for the minute security of Saliba over him. But if you're absolutely like strapped for cash, you could maybe risk Kivior, I guess. Timber, obviously a little bit of an injury risk, saw rotation for him in game week 30. So, you know, up to, well, game week 31. So up to you really if you want to go for him. Milenkovic, who I still think is the best Nottingham Forest defender. And to be honest, he's the kind of player you could just pick in your FPL team and leave him all season, because Forest, despite not performing great against Villa in 31, they're going to keep clean sheets throughout the season. And when you look at the attacking data of all of the Forest defenders, Milenkovic stands out on top. And then you've got Fabian Schär there as well, who I would say, of all the Newcastle defenders, probably poses the most attacking threat. That might be why he's the top Newcastle defender for the next 5. And I think if we just flip back to the next game week, yeah, he's also top. Although it's close between him and Burn, he's also top for 32, sorry. All right, I'll try not to get too confused about the game weeks going forwards. They're coming so thick and fast, and the content I'm making is so thick and fast in my mind that I get a little bit confused, so forgive me for that. So what I've got here is a view of cheap defenders because, yeah, it's all well and good picking or looking at the top defenders, but most of them are kind of the more expensive ones. So I've done a filter here of 5 million and below, and you can see the order of defenders ranked here. So you've got Kivior, Milenkovic, Mitchell, Byrne, Livramento, Kuzanov of City, and Neco Williams of Nottingham Forest being your best cheap defenders for the next 5 weeks. 5 million and below. Moving on to the midfielders then, and we've got Ismaila Sarr as the top midfielder for expected points for Game Week 32. Interesting one. I think when you look at the numbers in recent games, apart from obviously Eze getting 2 assists against Brighton, Sarr has outperformed Eze. And one thing I would say about Sarr as well, I've said this in videos gone by, you might be a little bit bored of me saying this. I think game for game, just for the fact that Eze is on set pieces, Eze is probably a better option. But I think if you're picking them for 2 consecutive double game weeks, which they have, I just think with Eze's injury record over the last couple of seasons, I think it's a hamstring he keeps having issues with. It would worry me that he could get injured over that period of time. And it would probably worry the Crystal Palace manager Glasner as well. I wouldn't want to lose Eze. So I think his minutes might be managed a little bit in comparison to Sarr, who has a relatively good injury record. So I think Sarr's minutes are better than Eze's. And I personally think Sarr's minutes, there's a reason I went for him over Eze. I personally think Sarr's minutes trump Eze's greater attacking threat, or the fact he's on set pieces. It's just me personally. Got Jacob Murphy up there, Salah as well. Jacob Murphy's obviously got the double game week. Salah still only has a single game week, but he's the 3rd best midfielder, almost top. There's 0.6 expected points in it. Got Anthony Gordon there. When you compare Jacob Murphy and Anthony Gordon in terms of their numbers this season, well, Murphy actually stands out on top. But if you ask me who the better player is, I'd say it's Anthony Gordon. And the fact that he's currently, 8.4% owned in the game, I quite like Anthony Gordon as a differential option going forwards. Bruno Guimaraes up there, he does some attacking threat, doesn't he, for Newcastle? Outside of, the wingers, he's probably the best midfielder to pick. I wouldn't go for him in FPL, though, I don't think. And you got Cole Palmer there, who's just been benched as well in Game Week 31. Looking ahead then to the next 5, despite no double game weeks, Salah's top, Palmer 2nd, Sarr is 3rd, obviously with 2 consecutive double game weeks. Anthony Gordon, he's got more fixtures as well. Previously I've said a lot of these players have the same amount of fixtures, but they don't because Newcastle don't blank in Game Week 34. So anyway, Gordon's up there as well. Interestingly, Gordon is ahead of Murphy for the next 5 game weeks. It's just for Game Week 32 that Murphy is ahead, and I think that's probably due to the fact that Gordon, we still don't know if he's fully back and fit and how many minutes he's going to get. That's probably factored into those expected points. Eze there, just below Gordon and Sarr, Jacob Murphy and Mbeumo. Even though some players have got extra fixtures, you still see some of those staple FPL midfielders amongst the best because, they are. Salah, Palmer and Mbeumo being prime examples. Okay, and similar to what we did previously with the cheap defenders, I've got a list of cheap midfielders as well, and the order goes Sarr, Eze, Jacob Murphy, Szoboszlai, who interestingly doesn't have a double game week but is amongst the top players, Semenyo, who has a potential double game week in 36, Savinio, who has a double in 33 and a potential double in 36 as well, and Martinelli. But personally, I don't think Martinelli's minutes are secure enough. And in fact, this probably, because he's not featured at all, this probably opens a little bit of a potential rabbit hole around Arsenal players in general in their expected minutes. I think the defenders will probably be okay. But Arteta, I think, made things clear in Game Week 31, not starting Saka, for example, that, he's prioritising the Champions League and pretty much given up on the Premier League. So what does that mean for the Arsenal assets around the Champions League games? Does it mean they're going to play in Game Week 32? Well, they've got, I think, Ipswich, isn't it, in Game Week 32? Let me just check that. No, they got Brentford, sorry, not Ipswich. I don't know where I got Ipswich from. But still, Brentford is a pretty good fixture. Could there be more Arsenal rests? Because it's between 2 Champions League games against Real Madrid. Could we see some more Arsenal rests against Brentford? I guess that's the thing you need to think about before bringing in Arsenal players. Up front then, we've got Isak as the top player in general and top forward. I don't think there's any real surprise there. We'll see if he starts on, they're playing on Monday, aren't they? We'll see if he starts on Monday night against Leicester, what kind of fitness status he's in, etc. ahead of obviously the double in 32. I'm a little bit worried about his fitness during that double. Even if he's fit to play against Leicester, there's obviously something that's niggling at him and bothering him. So, his minutes are probably not going to be absolute for Game Week 32. You've got Mateta, who I think's minutes are probably a little bit more secure than Isak's, especially considering Nketiah got sent off. Yeah, I really like him as an option. Cunha, who's only got a single, is up there. Watkins, Marmouche, obviously doubles next week in Game Week 33. Jackson and João Pedro are your other top forwards. And then a quick view here for the next 5 weeks. So we've got Isak and Mateta as the top two, obviously with the extra fixture. Cunha's up there, potential double in 36, and I think Wolves still have the best sort of run-in of any team in the league in my mind. Marmouche, again, doubling in Game Week 33, and Man City have a potential double in 36. So if you're looking, I think quite a lot of people got Marmouche. He's 28% owned in the game now, for example, but, you know, players free hitting in 34. You're picking Marmouche for 33, free hitting in 34, and then you've got a potential to get another double game week for him in 36. Ollie Watkins, who I believe is managing a bit of a knee issue. He obviously doubles in Game Week 33. Not a lot of talk about Ollie Watkins in FPL at the moment. I think that's because he has been sharing minutes with Marcus Rashford recently. He could be a decent differential. I know he's 18.4% owned, but I think that's probably by quite a lot of dead teams, if I'm completely honest with you. So he could be a good option if you're still engaged. Well, you're obviously still engaged because you're watching this video, but I think he could be a good option. Evan Nilsson doesn't have a double, but has been in good form since returning to the Bournemouth team. And Chris Wood. We'll see when he comes back from injury, but he could, he could become an option for Game Week 36. All right, captaincy. Is it really that hard this week? I'm not sure. Unless we get like definitive news before playing Leicester, or in that game he gets injured, I think Isak is just clear as captain, isn't he? The form he's been in this season, I think, is better than Mateta's. He's got 2 fixtures compared to Salah's 1. I don't see a way where I go for someone else. And of course, he's on penalties for Newcastle as well. Yeah, for me, I just don't see a way you go somewhere else. And for me, if I had a triple captain spare and I wasn't using a chip in 32, I think it's prime time to use it on Isak again. Wait for info from that Leicester game. See how the game plays out, whether he starts, whether he gets injured during the game, etc. Don't make any rash decisions now. But right now, with the info we got, I think Isak's the best captain. And I would look to triple captain him if I could, I think. And then we got some clean sheet odds here, courtesy of Draft Hound. Just a view of, for Game Week 32 in isolation. A couple of teams, obviously, with double game weeks. So we got their respective clean sheet odds there combined to add up. So we've got Aston Villa, 63% to keep a clean sheet against Southampton. Newcastle, 36 and 38 in their respective games. Brighton, 52% against Leicester. Liverpool, 50% against West Ham. Arsenal, 45% against Brentford. Chelsea, 45% against Ipswich. Forest, 44% against Everton. City, 40% against Palace. Tottenham, 35% against Wolves. That's a little bit inflated for me. Palace, only 17 and 21% in their respective games. That might be due to the fact that, obviously, Gahey's been suspended. You got Bournemouth v Fulham. Bournemouth on 31, Fulham on 29. That's going to be a really close game, isn't it? And then usually I say any teams kind of below 30% to keep a clean sheet, I'd try to avoid their players from it. Yeah, interesting one. If we just go, I haven't got the fixtures on screen actually, but if you think about the double game week teams and the fixtures that they've got, so again, we'll go back. Newcastle, well, on the screen you can't see. Newcastle got Man United and Crystal Palace. Is there really clean sheets in those games? Probably against Man United, but I actually think Crystal Palace is the tougher one of those two, I've got to say. And then Palace play, well, obviously, Newcastle away from home, and they've got Man City away from home as well. So, yeah, the double game week looks enticing for Crystal Palace. I don't think it's going to be that good for clean sheets. All right, well, that's the end of the video. I don't know why my mic's moved like that. I hope you enjoyed it and found it useful. If you did, please leave a like rating on the video. Let me know in the comments if there's any players that I've not spoken about or missed there that you think are good options. Well, or keep them to yourself. Whatever's up to you. Yeah, leave a like rating if you enjoyed the video. And if you've enjoyed this, haven't already, and want to stick around and see more content from me, I'd really appreciate it if you could subscribe to the Golden Goal channel. Should be just there on your screen. Thank you very much for watching. I'll catch you in my next video.